Just to recap, earlier we started out myself, talking about the family aspect as a whole. Then we moved on to at-risk youth with Kwame Lee, and health and fitness with Duran Flood, and education with Julian Arshipri. Now we want to bring up what I think is synonymous with life, whatever your faith is, religion. With the master facilitator, Yama member, Ishmael Campbell. He's a husband and father of two. He's been a Muslim all his life. He's a student of comparative religion, has been for over 20 years. He speaks to students about the misconceptions about Islam. And he does the word and has written over 8 books. And his website is www.islamisthetruth.org. He's also an active member of YAMA, Young Adult Muslim Association, at Masjid William Salam under the expert tutelage of Imam Bernie Fareed. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Ishmael Campbell.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I just wanted to thank all the people that came out today. I have some very talented and gifted friends, and I'm glad they came out to support me. Truly, truly appreciate it. I was writing a book called The Most Important Things in Life, and I figured why not get people who are knowledgeable about those things to speak about it. And I want to talk about religion. Obviously, that's something that I dedicated much of my life to, the comparative religion, and the importance of religion in life is what I want to talk about today. Someone once said, man's mind, once stretched by a new idea, never regains its original dimensions. I want you all today to use your thinking, not just your emotions or feelings. I was asked to speak to a group of troubled youths about a year ago. I was to give them advice and tips on being productive citizens in society. I must admit I was a bit perplexed, but I was honored for this privilege. My initial thought was to diagnose the problem. Why are teens troubled? Why do they do things which harm themselves and others? Why can't they see the future in these things are grim? And how can I get them to make better decisions? Unfortunately, there was a hurricane in this city, so I never got to speak to those students. But what I will give you today is what I wanted to share with them. There was a story of a sultan or king who once said, "I will give a bag of gold to anyone who accomplishes the most unusual feat." People came from all around, all courts, from all around, in different courts, with all different kinds of accomplishments. One man had a friend hold a needle at the end of the yard, and he went 100 yards and threw a thread through the eye of the needle. And this was the most unusual thing. So the sultan or king gave him the bag of gold. He said, "This is the most unusual thing that I can think of. However, I've found that it took you 20 years to accomplish this goal, and this goal is useless, so I also will give you 100 lashes." What people hold as important is extremely important. What people value in life is extremely important. It is not only important to that person, but to everyone and everything around us. Human beings can add importance to something which is undeserving. A football game may be of great importance to you. Your car, your wealth, your image may be of great importance to you. But are those things important to our existence and to existence of everything and everyone around us? How do we come to know what's the most important things in life? How do we place value on things and rank them from least to greatest of importance? I would say the most important things in life are those things which we can't do without or live without. We can't live without food, shelter, and water. Without those things, we would die. But what about the things we can't do without? They are love, compassion, friendship, empathy, brother and sisterhood, and a sense of purpose. Without these things, we still would live, but we would just be surviving. We would also always be empty and alone. Our emotions and feelings would not be put to use. Therefore, these things are extremely important, or they should be. Along with these things, we can list sadness, pain, fear, and dislike. Pain and fear are essential to the development and survival of humanity. Without them, we would be reckless and brazen when caution is necessary. I remember hearing about a boy who was born without any pain receptors. I thought that would be cool until I realized that if he touched a hot stove, he would never take his hand off. So what I thought was an advantage was actually a great disadvantage. So we need pain and fear. Without fear, one will be unable to discern bravery from recklessness, and sadness and dislike are counterparts to happiness and joy. We need happiness and love. Without the absence of those things, we won't understand sadness and pain. But where do we get love, compassion, and friendship from? How are they attained? They are not only attained by our existence, but by the existence of others and our coexistence. We cannot be whole without other people to love, other people to dislike, other people to befriend. Therefore, we can conclude that other people and circumstances are vital to our development. People, places, and circumstances make up our experiences. The sum of these experiences make us who we are as human beings. Now, how do people get better? Well, from my understanding, people get better when they understand that they are valuable. And they aren't valuable because they have a lot of money or because someone thinks they're sexy, but they're valuable because they are created by God, and God makes you valuable. These are the words from Yasin Bey. We know him as Mos Def. This is a quote that stuck with me and I always wanted to share with other people. So let us discuss the value of human beings. Do you realize that there are learned people who think that you and they have no value? It is a fact that peering into the cosmos reveals that the earth is but a speck of dust in the universe, which means human beings are an even smaller speck. But what does this fact mean? You see, facts are not in dispute. It is the interpretation of facts that are in dispute. Lawrence Krauss said human beings are completely irrelevant. Carl Sagan, in his book, The Pale Blue Dot, said, we are too small. On a scale of worlds, humans are inconsequential. A thin film of light on an obscure and solitary lump of rock and metal. Our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in society or in the universe, are challenged by this point of pale light. Atheists often refer to a picture of the earth from outer space and how it resembles a small speck or a pale light. They surmise that we are nothing more than accidents because of our size. But is it an accident that this small speck of dust can affect the earth and possibly all the bodies of the solar system, maybe the galaxy? A microscopic sperm can evolve into a human being, and that human being has the capacity to make astronomical change for good or bad. How do they account for that? Since we have found that God is irresistible, now we must find his purpose for us. You see, there's a huge distinction between purpose and function. I can use my nose to turn off the light switch, and it will function as my hands does. But that's not the purpose of it. Its intended purpose was for me to breathe and smell. Function can be accidental. Purpose denotes an intention and a conscious effort to bring about a certain result. A conscious effort comes from a conscious being. So again, even your body is testimony to the existence of God. The existence of natural law implies purpose. Laws are implemented to bring about a certain result, outcome, or behavior. Life reproduces. This is a purpose. The purpose is for life's continuation. Human reproduction is the continuation of life. It is one of our purposes. Carl Sagan said, the cosmos is also within us. We are made of star stuff. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself. This is also one of man's purposes. The physicist, theist, and lecturer Dr. Jules Schroeder described man as light beams or stardust. You see, stars exploded or imploded and spread elements all across the universe, and these elements make up our human body. Therefore, stardust can laugh, can cry, can smile, can drive cars or build bridges or go to the moon. Human bodies are made up of 65% oxygen, 18.5% carbon, 9.5% hydrogen. But some people do not grasp the fact that they are miracles themselves. You can gather all these elements, but you still can't make them live. Life is a miracle by our Creator. You are more than blood and bones. Humans have a consciousness, and that consciousness is not explained by science. They also have a self-consciousness. That means they think, and they think about their thinking. They also think about what other people think. So don't be allowed to be degraded or downgraded to simply a side effect of exploding stars. Neither should you categorize yourself as simply an animal. The Hindu figure Krishna spoke of man's immortal nature. Krishna said, his real self, the Atman, never dies, for it is never born. It is eternal. Sir John Eccles, Nobel Prize-winning neurophysicist, said the mind uses the brain as an instrument to think. You see, the mind and soul are our true selves. The soul, which I spoke of in my previous talk, is the driver of the car, called the body. It is our soul which is experiencing everything in this world. The mere existence of our soul indicates that we are created on purpose and with a purpose. This suggests that we are not irrelevant. We are not insignificant. What is man's place? The evolutionists assume that man is an inconsequential animal, no more or less important than a gnat. Religion says God made man vice-regent of the earth. Think about it. Man can collectively accelerate or decelerate the growth of life on earth. What other animal can do this? And can they do this on purpose? The idea that man is irrelevant and his actions are irrelevant is very dangerous. But placing man on a pedestal makes him aspire to live up to his potential. It gives him the responsibility to look after and take care of his inheritance, what he was entrusted with, this earth. I want you all to think about the first people on earth. Seeing their gray hair and wrinkled skin, they realized their mortality. Like many of us today, when we truly realize our mortality, then we seek out God. But we all will die. This is the truth that we all must face, but no one knows when. The angel of death would come to King Solomon. The angel of death resembled a human being in all respects. One day he was visiting Solomon, and a man was in Solomon's court, and the angel of death stared at him, and the man became frightened. So the angel of death left, and the man asked Solomon, he said, who was that was staring at me? He said it was the angel of death. And this man made the man even more frightened. He said, please send me to India so I can get away from the angel of death. The next day, the angel of death came, and Solomon said, why did you stare at that man so strangely? He said, it was because I was supposed to take his life in India, but he was in Jerusalem. You see, we will all die at one time. Wherever you are, death will find you out, even if you're on towers built strong and high, says the Quran. So life for us has a beginning and an ending. What is important is what we do in between that ending and the beginning. We have to be moral and just people. When you realize that we are created on purpose and with a purpose, we can no longer justify our behavior with, it feels right to me. Right and wrong, good and bad are not subjective. They are objective. Helping someone, generally speaking, is good and right. Harming someone, generally speaking, is wrong and bad. That love, hate, and hatred and discrimination are learned behaviors are testimony to this fact. Our inclination towards good and our consciousness is further testimony. Think about the highest grossing movies. They are examples of our pursuit for love and justice. We love love stories, and we want justice to prevail. We yearn for the good guy to win. We have a predisposition towards goodness, fairness, and compassion. Believing that morals are a byproduct of evolution, as atheists do, with no true value is dangerous. Believing that there is no accountability for what you do is dangerous. Belief in morals and ethics as a prescription for a better life provided for you by the creator of all things is better than this. Knowing that what you do in private, you are not alone. Knowing that the crimes you have committed, you have not gotten away with, makes you a better person. It compels you to change, and to want to change, it compels you to rectify your behavior. So our value and morals come from God. Value is determined primarily by the maker, and secondly by the recipient of the benefits of your purposed life. Thus, activities contrary to your purposed life lower your value. If I make a watch and it doesn't tell the time, it loses its value. It doesn't fulfill its purpose for existence. This would mean that a watch which told the precise time is more valuable than a watch which doesn't tell the time, or only tells the time right twice in a day. Likewise, a person who is in line with his purpose would be more valuable to his maker. And like a watch, he or she are used by others to synchronize their purpose to put those other people in sync. There are those who put other people on a pedestal simply because they're wealthy, because they're famous, because they're intelligent, or because they are attractive. They are greatly deluded by what the most important things in life are. Though they may be able to articulate these things to you, they do not live by these standards in many instances. My father was a custodian for the city of Norfolk. He cleaned many of the municipal buildings, which means he saw most of the citizens in Norfolk at one time or another. I wonder if the doctors, lawyers, professors, and scientists of Norfolk knew that this man, cleaning their building, knew the secrets of existence. Did they know that he had the purpose for his life and their life and the secret to all of existence? Perhaps a short conversation with this man may have unearthed this truth. This custodian, who had not finished high school, was endowed with the knowledge of the most important thing in the world. If you ask anyone in passing, what is the most important thing in life? You will get different answers. Some will say life, health, family, love, God, or relationships. I asked my two sons, what is the most important thing in life? My eldest son said it was family. My youngest son said it was God, because without God, you don't have a family. I said they are both true, but the youngest is more accurate. Without God, you are absolutely nothing. You are non-existent. Thus, his significance is paramount to our lives, and the nature of God is the most important component to understanding life. Maimonides said the foundation of all foundations, the pillar supporting all wisdom, is the recognition of the reality of God. Nothing else on the planet has the capacity or capability to know God except human beings. This knowledge is a prerequisite to understanding anything else about religion. If you do not understand the Creator, how can you fully understand his creation and his creatures? How can you understand God's will? How do you worship God? While on the subject of worship, what does worship mean? Worship means worthiness. It comes from the words worth and ship. Worship had no religious connotation until the 13th century. It means the quality of being valuable. One way to value God is to be good vice-regents. God has given man dominion over this earth, so we should accept the responsibility and be good governors for the entire world around us, the plants, the animals, and the environment. Another way to value God is to do as he commands, to be good servants of God. God has purpose and will for us. It is his will that is the most important things in our lives. His will encompasses all things mentioned today: family, education, the future of the youth, fair dealings in finances, and health. It is God that will make us productive, healthy, and righteous people. This is the crux of all religions. What is religion? Some say it is an opiate that is used to control the masses or to lull them to sleep. Some say it is a list of do's and don'ts which are unrealistic to attempt to attain. Some say it's the root of all evil and the cause of fighting and war. Mark Twain said, one of the most striking differences between a cat and a lie is that a cat only has 9 lives. Lies can linger for years and years. Here's a lie that still lingers today. More people die of religion than anything else. I've heard this countless times, but is it true? According to the Encyclopedia of War, of the 1,763 major conflicts in recorded history, only 123 of them are classified as being fought over religious differences. That's just under 7%. The encyclopedia also explained that the number of people killed in these conflicts amounts to only 2% of all people killed in war. In an article entitled, "Is Religion the Cause of Most Wars?" Jimmy Akin writes, religion is a powerful motivator, and thus it is invoked in wartime. But the real reason for most wars have nothing to do with it. Instead, they are for political control, either allowing a certain political leader to gain power or remain in power, or they have to do with gaining political control of resources, or they have to do with a particular leader's ambition. Leaders dress up in national pride and religion, but ultimately they are not the reasons or the root of these wars. Mao Zedong, Pol Pot, Joseph Stalin were all atheists. And these three men are responsible for millions and millions of murders, yet they are not religious at all. They despise religion. As long as there are people, there will be conflict. People use religion as a cloak for their real aspirations. So now that this myth is busted, what about people? Why do they reject religion? Many people simply believe in God, and that's it. But as I mentioned in my previous talk, deism is not enough. Their belief in God is not a catalyst which will make them change their behavior. Albert Einstein was a deist. Lawrence Krauss said he would never argue against deism. He believes it is plausible. Richard Dawkins says there is a case for intelligent design. So why do people reject religion? Pascal said, men despise religion. They hate it and are afraid that it may be true. Karl Marx said religion is the opium of the masses to control or manipulate them. While he was formulating while he is formulating the blueprints for communism, which actually controls and manipulates the masses. But religion means watchfulness, attentiveness, alertness, self-questioning, and the heeding of conscience in every deed, word, or prompting. This is not the way of the opium eater. The true opium eater is the materialist who rejects religion because he wants to escape its consequences and responsibility, and who thinks that the moments he lives belongs to him, so that he goes on doing as he likes, believing that there is no watcher or questioner or resurrection after death. How can a man like this compare to one who believes even every individual in his nation that starves, they believe that it's on them to help to rectify that situation? Every animal that is mistreated, they feel responsible for it. You see, religion makes you better. As we were talking, Flood was talking about eating habits. In Islam, you're not supposed to eat pork. This just gives you a way of thinking about your diet and wanting to make sure that you eat the right things and proper things for you. In Islam, there's no use for alcoholism. Alcohol is bad for you, even in moderation, as Flood mentioned. Even in moderation, drinking is linked to increased cancer risk. In AA, many of the principles of religion are religious. Spirituality overcomes the evil spirits of alcohol. They tell the participant to be mindful of their benevolent thoughts. This is nothing more than God consciousness. I can make the same amount of money as someone else, but my money goes further because I don't drink, because I don't smoke, because I don't gamble. These are expensive habits, and these habits are formed as coping mechanisms or a means of escape. But religious people are less likely to have these problems. They have little use for escape. A Gallup poll in 2010 suggests that the very rich Americans make healthier choices than their moderately religious or non-religious counterparts across all four health behavior index matrix, including smoking, healthy eating, and regular exercise. Smoking is one area of particular differentiation between the very religious and the less religious, with the non-religious 85% more likely to be smokers than those who are religious. The religious are less stressed, they have less depression, and generally have a strong family. They are healthier and take fewer sick days. They also have less anxiety at their workplace. So why are they less stressed? It is because they realize that this world is a test. And like a student who has studied thoroughly for his test, they can sleep easy at night. They understand the most important things in life and the purpose of life. And as a whole, religious people are far more charitable than non-religious people because they have a driving force. God is the best to drive people towards morality. There is a 99-year-old man in Bulgaria who begs every day, but he doesn't keep 1 cent of it. He lives in the church, and he gives the money to the church and to the orphans every single day of his life. There are also studies on optimism and pessimism. Optimists live longer and healthier lives. Optimists are less likely to have high blood pressure, diabetes, or to smoke cigarettes. A pessimist, on the other hand, deals in limits. They say that this can't be done, so they will always stifle themselves. Whereas optimists deal with what people assume is unreasonable and unattainable. They look beyond limits. So even if they do not reach their goal, they exceed the limits and make it possible to push the envelope further. Who is the most pessimistic people on earth? Those who say, my life is an accident, and after my death, there will be nothing. I will never see my family or my friends again. Who are the most optimistic people? People who say we are religious and we will live forever. Our sense of fairness and justice are satisfied with life in the hereafter, where our true selves, our souls, will dwell forever. Another reason to consider religion is the moral character of the religious. Studies have shown a direct correlation between crime and the belief in the accountability in the hereafter. The greater their belief in the hereafter, the more moral and just that they are. Remember that at one time, you were non-existent. God says, I created you before. Why did you doubt that I can create you again? That's the next question. And man, microphone got loud all of a sudden. And man I once looked up to asked me, if I don't smoke or drink, how do I have fun? As if fun can be attained without these things. It reminded me of Frederick Douglass' narrative in which slaves were allowed the week of Christmas to New Year's to drink, and they drank themselves into a stupor until the New Year started and slavery began again. Today, during Christmas, the most sacred time of the year for Christians, ABC stores are overrun with patrons celebrating the birth of the Christian God in the flesh. How does intoxication equate to joy and happiness? The Quran tells us to compete in righteousness. This is where we should seek our joy and fun in helping others. In this case, no one loses. God says, you are the best of people who enjoy what is right and forbid what is wrong. This is true greatness. Now let me ask you, who is more likely to change the world for the better? A person who believes that he has a purpose and responsibility and meaning in life to be righteous, or one who believes that they are nothing more than byproducts, a side effect, who implements arbitrary rules for himself and eventually goes back to being dirt. The most influential people in history have been religious, and extremely religious, to such an extent they thought God was communicating with them. It could be Prophet Muhammad, Jesus, Moses, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Sir Isaac Newton, Mother Teresa, Malcolm X, the list goes on and on. The most remembered and revered people in history are religious, though their fame was gained after their time on earth. But we should stop hero worshiping. People are examples, not to be in awe of, but to be followed. Maybe one day we can be as good as them, or better. The greatest men and women of history all sacrificed themselves, using selflessness, empathy, and sharing, because these are our greatest human characteristics. Human beings are mammals. Mammals play and laugh, unlike other creatures, like reptiles and insects. Humans are designed to interact with each other. Scientists say the human yawning is a sign of empathy. You see, when you say yawning, some people may yawn just by saying the words. But wait a little while and see if that happens. But human crying and laughing, they're also behaviors that are innate behaviors, because even the blind and deaf people can laugh and cry. But bear in mind that emotions are uniquely human. Only a human being can cry out of emotion. We are purposely emotional creatures. We are made to care about one another. Purposelessness makes people selfish and indifferent, only caring about the things that relate to them. There was a great documentary entitled Mahatma 21, which deals with eugenics, abortion, and racism. This is a documentary I think everyone should watch, specifically women. But in one particular segment, there was an owner of an abortion clinic who said the solution to the poor and underprivileged in society was to let them die. This is an example of indifference to the suffering of others. This is contrary to the views of the religious. The religious believe that there's nothing you have is yours, not your car, your home, your money, even your life. They are all temporal things, which will be given to you and can be taken away from you, or you can be taken from them. All wealthy and rich people are lucky. Circumstances are presented which facilitate their opportunity for their wealth. Malcolm Gladwell, in his book Outliers, spoke about this. Gladwell said almost all successful people have invested at least 10,000 hours of dedication to their particular field of interest. Yet they still need the proper environment to succeed. Athletes, entertainers, businessmen, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Oprah Winfrey, or Barack Obama, had they been born in a different era, their knowledge and skill may not have been of good use, and it may not have been worth millions of dollars, or even enough to make him president. When we realize that we are lucky and that nothing we have is actually ours, not even our lives, we realize that we ought to give more. There are people walking around with $50, $60 billion. If they gave away $10 billion, they wouldn't even feel it. Nothing in their lives would change. If $1 billion can make 1,000 people millionaires, why wouldn't they do it if it doesn't affect them at all? So I think they have some culpability when people starve, when people don't have health care, when people are living in poverty. How can you in good conscience buy $1 million car when you know for certain that there are people who don't have clean water? There are people in Haiti who eat mud cakes made of mud, and you have $1 million car. Movies like Blindside give me hope that there are people who have more and are willing to give more. Bill Gates and his wife are great examples of this. They give tirelessly to people. Alicia Keys, the R&B singer, did a special in Africa where the living conditions of certain people were horrendous. The food and resources were scarce. They lived in abject poverty in dilapidated homes with little opportunity for work. As Alicia Keys' camera crew was filming, one man asked her, "Do you think human beings should live like this?" It was a gut-wrenching moment because the answer was so clear. No one should live like this. One of the richest men in India has a home so large that he can drive his cars around in it. And his home overlooks his fellow countrymen living in alleyways with sheet metal overhead to shield them from rain. What is wrong with those who have the ability to change but don't do it? The poet Human Muhammad said, "Your struggle is my struggle." We cannot just look at our problems and our situation and say, this is all that matters. Everyone matters. When we help others, we prosper. We are godly, or we are made to be godly. God wants man to be merciful, for goodness sake, oversee land, animals, and other human beings. And this is echoed in every religion. Did you know that the golden rule exists in all religions? Treat others how you want to be treated. Confucius said, in an earlier version, he said, "Do not do to others what you do not want done to yourself." The story of Adam and Eve, the flood of Noah, all these things were told by different people in different times. Even the similarities in African stories and Indian stories. Krishna said 500 years before Jesus, the famous "I am." He is believed to be God. So what does this mean? Some people believe that these stories were stolen, but maybe, and more accurately, there are similar stories from a similar source, God. It is my belief that prophets were sent to every people, and they all had these similarities, but human beings changed the message. George Bernard Shaw said there is only one religion, though there are 100 versions of it. So how do we come to the truth of our religion? Thomas Huxley said, all truth is common sense in the long run. Truth can be understood. It is understandable. Once we use our minds. You see, our minds are what we are supposed to use to make life decisions. Your heart is but a compass. It guides you in the right direction, but your mind tells you when you have reached that destination. Your feelings are more likely to lead you astray than your thinking is. One principle of Buddhism goes, to see the false as false is the beginning of understanding what truth is. Only when you see false as false can you see what is true. As the Quran says, truth stands out far from error. It also says, we hurl truth towards falsehood, and it knocks out its brains. And behold, falsehood perishes. And Jesus is recorded as saying, the truth will set you free. You see, God is eternal and the truth. This is because truth is eternal, and it always will be the truth. Our lives are momentary. Therefore, if our lives are our life is momentary. Therefore, if our life is momentary, it is an illusion. It is not the real truth. The truth is what comes after this life. As I have said before, our memories are but a storage, and we use storage because what we have in that storage will be of value and of use at a later date. The use is for man to stand accountable for every deed and misdeed that he has done. God asks, Do you think that I have made you for sport? God made you for a purpose. That purpose is to worship and praise him. Your life and your actions should all be worship and praise to God. God has ordained everything to praise and worship him. The sun, the trees, the fish, the birds all praise God. They all do as God wills. And we praise God by living righteously. We submit our wills to his will and want for us. And this is the express goal of all God-fearing persons living, ever born. This is why we understand our value and what is valuable to us. When we realize that the life is valuable, you set your goals towards this thing. I think of Bobby Fischer, Michael Jordan, and Tiger Woods, and I think about the magnificent potential that human beings have. But without understanding what is important, we can dedicate our lives to things which are of little actual importance. Or we can make things that are important, make things that are not important, seem important, like basketball, chess, and golf. And you will be like the man who threw the thread through the eye of the needle. These things are good exercises and pastimes, but do not let your time pass without an exercise in what are the most important things in life. When we dedicate our lives to basketball, and when someone dedicates his life to basketball, and I dedicate my life to educating people, who is more productive? After 100 years, their records, their hard work will be forgotten. But how long did Jesus live? And why is he still remembered? Even a regular teacher, if a teacher teaches my son one lesson, she receives a blessing. If he takes that lesson, then she also gets a blessing. If he teaches his children and their children, both of them get a blessing. It's like a ripple effect. It continues on and on. See, no one is perfect, but if we strive for perfection, you will be the best that you can be. If you ask the moon, what is the most important thing in the world, what would it say? If you ask any animal in nature, what are the most important things in life, what would they articulate to you? They would say that it is to do what God has created them to do. And this is the answer for us. And do not think that it is unfathomable to believe that animals and inanimate objects can speak. Remember, we are all inanimate objects, given the life and consciousness by God. We are all products of earth and water. In effect, we are mud. We are walking, talking, thinking, living, decision-making mud. We are living miracles. Yet some are arrogant enough to dismiss the thought of miracles. God can give life to whatever or whomever he chooses, and he chooses to give it to you. In doing so, he has given us a grand opportunity. That opportunity is to be benevolent to others in everything we come in contact with. It has been said, the best knowledge is the knowledge which benefits the listener. The knowledge that benefits no one is useless and not worthy of remembering. I hope that I have given you all something which benefits you and something which you will remember. Peace. Thanks again for tuning into my talk, The Most Important Things in Life. I would also like to thank the guest speakers, Kwame Lee, Daron Flood, Saisha Dale, Julian Shakri, and Miller Shakri. And once again, tune in to my website, islamisthetruth.org, or God the Irresistible, for my books and my t-shirts. Thank you.